Today on Keep It Simple Studio, we're going to be making this simple workbench. A few weeks ago, I made myself a little bit bigger workbench. As you can see here, I integrated my table saw into it, and that was a bit too much. I'm going to be using some reclaimed tabletop. I used a trick that I learned from making headers. If you take two 2x4s and sandwich a half-inch piece of plywood in between it, that gives you the same width as a regular 2x4. And this way, we can make all of our legs with half-lap joints without having to do any chipping out with a file or a planer or dado or anything else. So you can see that's how it goes together like that. So the first step is to cut 4 pieces from my plywood that are 3.5 inches thick, and these are going to be about 36 inches long. Next up, I need the 4 main legs. These are going to be 35.5 inches tall each for right now. I'm going to set up a stop so I can make sure they're all the same length. Here I'm setting up another stop so that I can make some squares out of my 2x4s. I simply set up a stop there, back it up against the blade. Now I'm turning it sideways. I'm going to need 8 of these. These are going to be the feet that wrap around the bottom. Now I also need 8 pieces that are 25.5 inches long. Once again, I'm going to set up a stop and then go to it, cut in 8 pieces. It's assembly time. So now I'm going to smear some glue on both the 35.5 inch piece and also the piece of plywood. If you have some cardboard to help spread it out there, don't use it, because this really didn't work at all. Now, I line them up carefully, and I'm just going to shoot some brads in it to hold it, because it's really the glue that's holding this whole thing together. This is just so I don't have to wait for the glue to dry. The next step is to add the feet. I put my 3.5 by 3.5 inch piece down at the bottom. I'm pre-drilling here because I found that with the small feet it splits pretty easily. Now I did put glue on this, you just didn't see it. Now I take my other piece, a 3.5, and I use it as a spacer because this is where my runner across is going to go. I glue up my 25.5 inch piece, snug it up there nice, and I'm just securing it with some screws until the glue can dry. Now I take my scrap piece, put it at the top, draw a line, and I'm going to take the leg assembly over to the chop saw. I'm cutting it to its final height, which in my case is going to be 34.5 inches. This is because I have an 1.5 inch tabletop and it brings it up to 36, which is a comfortable height for me. You can make it any height you want. Now I take another square piece and put it at the bottom. I'm going to glue and screw that into place. And then I take another 25.5 inch piece and put that in place. Now by leaving those gaps where I have them, you'll see that I can now wrap around the outside with more 2x4s and we're all set. What I'm doing here is you have to make sure that all your sides line up right. So now I have my two sides, and this is my cross piece. I'm putting just a little bit of glue in there. I start out by just snugging it in, and I put one screw to start with. After I square it all up, I'm going to put in some more screws. But these are the side legs here. After finishing up both sides, I'm now going to put my cross pieces across. In this case, it's only 36 inches wide, so it's not a very big bench at all. But you can do up to 8 feet without any problem, I would think. I happen to make a mistake here, and I put the legs on backwards. They should be on the opposite side. It's really just a matter of screwing this together here. I'm not using any glue, because I do want to be able to take this apart later, because we're going to be moving soon. But I start with one screw in each corner, square it up, and then I'm going to add more screws. Okay, now I've flipped it over. I'm going to add the other two sides, and we're really just about done. A few more screws, making sure everything's square, and we're good for the top. After adding the extra screws, we're all set. You can see that everything is backwards here, and the legs are actually on the wrong side. So please do yours correctly. I measure, and I'm going to be filling in the bottom with some leftover scraps of 1x6 that I have. These are leftover from my fabulous Adirondack chair build. You might want to check that one out. Here, I'm just cutting these to 25 inches. There's quite a few of them. After measuring, I notch out the corners with my jigsaw, and then I'm ready to start putting in the base. Now, for the bottom shelf, all I do is lay them in place right now. Like I said, I didn't want them in quite secure yet because I am going to take this apart. It also makes things a little bit easier for me, the way I have things set up in my shop. If you want to put yours in, you can either screw them in or you can nail it in. But usually the weight of something on the bottom is enough to hold the shelf in place. I put the rest of the bottom pieces across here. I have to notch out for the other side where the legs come down again. And then I'll be ready for the top. Like I said, I'm using a piece of recycled stone that I have here. I'm going to glue this down later once I move it to its final location. But for right now, I'm just laying it on top. I've seen plenty of people make tops out of 2x4s. If you want to watch one of their videos, they do a much better job than I ever would. And there you have it. This is my small workbench. I'm going to put a couple of things on it, and I'm going to look at my modern art. Thanks for watching.